Get it working here. George Rumple, hit it.
Yeah, I'm George Rumple. Of course, I'm an old man now. I'm 86 years old. But when I first started on Mount Rushmore, I heard they was hiring men up there. And I went up and saw Mr. Borglum, the sculptor, and he said, we're hiring. And he said, we pay 30 cents an hour, and if you furnish your own tools, we'll give you a nickel more. So I said I wanted to go to work. So I went to work on the road that was from the main road into the studio where it's at now to get our equipment in. And I worked there a little while, and he come along one day and said, George, he said, I see you're a stone man. And I said, yes, sir, Mr. Borglum. He said, you come into my office tomorrow at 10 o'clock. I want to see you. So I said, I'll be there, Mr. Borglum. So I went in at 10 o'clock, and he said, George, I'm going to put you up on the mountain, and I'm going to have you start carving because you know stonework, and I'll put you up there on one of the faces. So I worked up there a while, and we had a lot of men. Mr. Borglum was a very fine man. He was temperamental, but he was a good man to work for. And there was Washington was part of Washington was the only one there when I went to work, and they was hiring men. And so I told him some of the men that I knew that might be, so they hired miners, and there wasn't no real carvers there. And he said, George, he said, I'm going to have a couple of carvers come in from the east, and he said, when you get up there, I'm going to put one of them right beside you. And he said, well, I said, how would I know him? He says, oh, we call him Del Bianco. So he was a big husky guy. And I was working on the eye, and so Del, he came up and told me who he was, and I said, I'm going to watch you, and maybe I could get a few pointers. And he said, I'd be glad to help you, George. He said, you know, I even was a guard for the Pope, he said at one time, but he said, I'm a stone carver now. And he was not only a stone carver, but he was a genius. And by me working beside him, we come real close friends. And I watched him, and so on the lip of Jefferson, there was a flaw on the lip of Jefferson. And Mr. Borglum come up one day, and he said, Del, he said, we're going to take that out, and I'm going to have you get another piece of stone, wedge shape, and put in that lip. So where I was working on part of the eye, I could look right down at Del working on this lip, and I'll tell you, he was a genius. And he just went to work there. He knew what he was doing, and he was a carver. He could have been a sculptor. He could have been, I think he's one of the top men. And he became a real good friend of mine. And so a little model I had of Washington, and he said, George, I'm going to give you models that you can work with up here. And he said it was taking the death mask of Washington. So he made that, and I still have that today after all these years. I worked there from 1932 till 1941. And so Del, anyway, he left in the meantime. I lost track of him. I didn't know where he went, but he made me this mask of Washington, and I still got it. And on the bottom it says, Del Bianco, 1939, and I cherish that thing now. I wouldn't take and I'm not a moneyed man, but I wouldn't take $1,000 for it. And I felt real bad because I lost track of him, because he taught me lots of things, and he was not only a carver, but he was a genius. I think he could have took Mr. Borglum's place and completed that himself. But anyway, so after I come back every year and pass out tracts that I wrote, and I met his daughter, and we had quite a conversation. So I'm trying to tell her a little bit about her dad. She never has to be ashamed of her dad. He walked tall, and he had lots of friends out here, and everybody loved him. He was a loving man. He was a big fella, you know. He looked more like a prize fighter, but boy, he knew what he was doing when he was working on the faces. And he worked on different places on the mountain. But anyway, first thing I know, he was gone, so I lost track of him till I talked to his daughter here. This is 1991, and I was really glad that I met her, and we had old times. And I just feel like that she's my relation too, because Eldell, he was such a close friend to me, and oh, I can't give him praise enough. And I know a lot of the other men liked him, but he didn't mix up to conversations with many of the men, but he sure was a close friend of mine.
George, I'm sure he loved you very much.
Yes, he did.
I can feel it coming from you, and I'm very, very touched about this.
And he was real close to me, and nobody could be ashamed of that man. He was all man, and he was a big man. He had a kind heart, and he always wanted to help somebody. And he asked me if I needed any help. He knew that I had a family. He wanted to know if I had enough to take care of my family. And he said, I'll help you, George, if you want me to, but I didn't need it. But he was, I don't know, that little mask he made for me, as bad as I need money, I wouldn't take $1,000 for it. You couldn't get it away from me. And I live alone in a retirement home, and I've got a missionary sister that helps me. And I said, Arlene, I want you to take this death mask and hang it up in a place in your home. And I said, this is my friend that made that. And so she's already agreed to take care of it. She says, George, he said, whatever you say, I believe you. So it broke my heart to when I knew he left.
Yes. I don't know why he left either. It might have been a financial reason with the money from the government. I'm not sure what happened there.
I don't know.
But
either.
I know that Borglum apparently was paying him from his own pocket.
I know Borglum was giving him some extra, and the most they ever paid up there, I got to be foreman. I got $1.25, and that was the top wages. That's what they said at the celebration. That was all they paid. And I think maybe Mr. Borglum, he should have doubled his money. He should have been getting $3 an hour for the work he was doing, because he was an artist at it. He was not only a stone carver, but he was an artist, a friend, and well, you just name it. That's what Eldell was.
Let me ask you, how was his relationship with Gutzon Borglum?
His relationship was very good. I never heard a cross word, and whenever he come around and talked to Eldell, he'd come and talk to most of us, and he'd say, how's things going? How's things going, Eldell? All fine, Mr. Borglum. And I think they was very close too.
Yeah.
I don't think they. I know that he never had a word. He never said a bad word about Mr. Borglum, and Mr. Borglum or his son never said a bad word about him. They always had high praises for him. He had it coming.
Right.
They should have given him high praise.
Right. I heard he called my father Bianco.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah, but you called him Eldell, huh?
Yeah, I call him Eldell, and Mr. Borglum called him Bianco.
Right.
And his name is, I guess, Del Bianco, isn't it?
It's Luigi Del Bianco.
He's got, on this model that he made for me, he's got E.L. Del, I don't know whether he's got Bianco on there or not, but I think it's got just Eldell on there,
yeah.
1939.
Yeah, yeah.
And I treasured as a keepsake. I've lost my home and everything had in it. Oh. That's one thing I hung on to. And I've got it in, I live in a retirement home, and people come in and they say, what is that there? And I tell them the story about Eldell and how we got acquainted and how he helped me to be one of the carvers on Rushmore. He gave me lots of advice, and I was easy to learn. Of course, I'd worked at the stonework, and he helped me wonderful. He was 100% man, not 50%, 105%. Real man.